Hey guys, so back to work on the Evo. We're going to be working on the 4G63 power plant right now. The idea is going to be to clean it up, get it looking good. It needs a few gaskets. So here it is. I pulled it out of my Evo 5 parts car. Now, just taking a look at it. So, what I'm going to have to pull off, I have to pull off the exhaust manifold. I want to do all the studs coming off the head. They are quite deteriorated, so pretty rusted. In addition, I can see by the sort of staining that the valve cover gasket needs to be done, so valve cover's coming off. So what my plan is going to be here is I'm going to strip off the manifolds, both intake and exhaust. That's going to be as well the turbo, all that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to take off the valve cover, do the valve cover gasket as well. I'm going to do the cam sensor gasket as well. It seems to be seeping a little bit as well. Now, in addition to that, a lot of cleaning is going to happen. There are going to be some new parts going on. So quite a few new parts on this engine. I have different valve cover, different turbo, timing belt cover is going to come off. I'm going to pull a lot of the pulleys, clean everything up. And the idea here is going to be that I want to refresh this engine, make it look nice without pulling the head, without disturbing the head gasket or really any of the valve train, because the engine right now, it runs and drives, good compression. I don't want to mess with any of that, but I do want to clean it up and make it look decent, because ultimately I did all of this work to clean up the bay, and I want the engine to match what I've already done in the bay. So got to clean that up, and yeah, so let's get to it. Okay, so where we're at here is I separated the turbo from the manifold. Now, when doing this, there's two studs with nuts on them, and then there's two longer bolts on the inside. So now to do that, separate that properly, the two major things that you have to pull is you need to pull the hard line that feeds the turbo up here on the head, and you need to pull the oil drain back to the pan at the bottom here, as well as two coolant lines here, and turbo will come off. So here it is over here. There's a single gasket, and you can see the two studs there. Now, this makes it a little bit easier to handle because with the manifold it's pretty heavy. As well, it makes it much easier to get to the fasteners on the bottom of the manifold, because you have all this space now. And in addition, you can see the block code, which is right there. So this is a double A block code, which should coincide with an Evo 6 block. So yeah, so next is going to be pulling these rusty studs here, and we'll see how that goes. Now, pulling the nuts off of the studs on the manifold, I ended up using a reverse spiral socket, which does come in handy as it grips deteriorated fasteners. So for the manifold itself, these top 12 millimeter nuts, I don't think I'm going to need something like this, but I do have a set of them here just in case. So let's see how this goes next. All right, so this is where we're at now. We have the exhaust manifold removed. So we have some studs that are deteriorated. We need to get them out. So you can see this one came out on its own, and that was just simply the nut piling up on the end and turning that stud out. So there's a few ways of dealing with this. What we could do is we could chase these threads, see how bad they are, and go from there. Or you can double nut the studs and turn them out slowly. There are two fairly large ones on the corner. Because these are soaked with oil, they are not deteriorated at all, so I'm not going to bother with these. Now keep in mind though that the bottom row does go into the water jacket. Those holes are not blind, so you're actually going to need some thread sealant on the bottom row. So this, and this. I'm not going to bother replacing these corner ones. They're in great shape. The deteriorated rusty ones I'm going to turn out, and I will put in some new Mitsubishi ones. So that's what's going to happen next, is we're going to replace these studs and clean them up, and then we're going to move on to the intake side. Okay, so we're going to just show you quick how to back these studs out. So what you're meant to do, you have these two nuts. So one side is flat, the other side is a normal nut shape. Now these are the regular exhaust nuts that are off of this manifold. So what you do, take a wrench and flip the nut around, put the wrench onto the stud like that, turn the other nut on there. Because these are a bit deteriorated, you may need to get that wrench to get it going. Okay, so now the wrench is pretty much stuck on there, right? So now you need a way to block this nut from turning so that the stud turns out. So what you're going to do is use another nut. You're going to put it the correct direction, turn it on there, okay, now take a ratchet and turn them against each other. Okay. Now you have this nut. You have this nut stopping the other one from turning off. You just give it a good turn. And you can slowly back these out. Now, as you're going, you'd want to stop right prior to turning it out completely, so that you have an opportunity to kind of break these loose again. Yeah, we got it pretty far out. Now take your ratchet, flip it the opposite direction, you loosened it off. And you can still keep going. Pull this all the way out. There you have it. Okay, so now we're on the intake side here. The intake side's fairly simple, especially when the engine's out. You have some coolant lines on this side that you need to pull off the block. We have the water tube that runs to the thermostat, kind of runs underneath the intake manifold here. And so there's a few tubes that lead that lead to it, and some of them are run through the throttle body for cold start. And the intake side, the studs on the intake side are rarely ever a problem as far as deterioration, just simply because they don't get heat cycled enough, and in addition they're not facing forward. The exhaust manifold, not only is it getting heat cycled, it's facing forward, so all of the inclement weather, all the moisture that's going into the front of your car is also hitting that manifold, whereas the intake side is sort of hiding on the other side of the engine, out of harm's way. So all you really have to do with this side is pull the fuel rail, which is a couple bolts, and then the manifold has two large 14mm nuts on either side, a bunch of 12mm bolts through the center, as well as the underside. Here we have a canister it's an extension of the charcoal canister, so for emissions. So that's sitting over here in the back. There's two bolts attached to the block there. The oil dipstick has to come out, and then the intake just lifts off. So it's really not that heavy because it's aluminum. And that's it. Okay, so put that on the ground. Now I'm going to go through all of this, clean it all up, wash everything down, clean the hoses, inspect any gaskets or any cracks on any of the vacuum hoses. And this side of the engine is pretty clean, but this will also give me the ability to clean the back of the head here on the intake side, and clean that up really well. And so after that, the next step here is I'm going to be moving to the timing side, taking off the belt, taking off some pulleys, pulling the cover, inspecting the timing belt, which I'm fairly certain, as far as I remember here, this timing belt's been done like in the last 5,000 Ks, so I'm sure it'll be fine. But I've come all this way, I may as well take a quick look at it, see if it's in good shape, and probably clean up the timing cover. Actually, I have a new one, so I'll put a new timing cover on here while I'm doing the valve cover, new valve cover as well, and get this engine cleaned up, and then it will be heading towards assembly. However, I may pull the transmission and the transfer case off. So this car does have a newer clutch in it. However, I wanted to use a different transfer case. I do have a Tommy Mackinnon transfer case for this car, which has a larger core in it. The core is the same size as the 789 series transfer cases. So I'm gonna probably throw that in there. The transmission, I may put in a different transmission. I may just leave this one as well. I mean, we'll see, but The other transmission is pretty decent. So it came out of this Evo 6 and shifts very nice. So I may throw another transmission on here. It'll give me an opportunity to inspect the clutch as well. So we'll see if I go that far. But so far we're cruising ahead with the Evo 6 engine here. Okay, so we're at the point where we're going to pull the transfer case. Now the procedure that I'm going to use to pull the transfer case is the same as if the engine were in the car. So after some thought and deliberation, I probably don't need to do anything with the transmission. The clutch is new, and from speaking with the mechanic who used to work on this car, the transmission sounds like it's pretty healthy. Also, when I drained the fluid out, there wasn't anything, any red flags, nothing, no burnt spell, no metal, anything like that. So, so what's going to happen? I'm going to pull the transfer case because I have a better transfer case that I'd like to put in this car. I'm not even sure if this is a LSD, limited slip transfer case. So I'm going to take a look and see if that's the case, but either way I have a stronger one that I want to put in. So what I'm going to use to pull this is a slide hammer and a bolt with a little hook on it. And this is what you'd have to do even if the transfer case was in the car. So this is probably good to see with it out of the car because you can see all of the bolts and where they are. So first thing that has to happen is these stub shafts have to come out. Now they have a C-clip at the end, so they're just locked in with the C-clip. That's why you have to jar them loose with a slide hammer. So basically all you do, you put a bolt in the end. The end of the stub shaft is threaded. And you use a slide hammer to hook on that. Just takes one good whack. So all right, hook it on here. Pull the slide hammer tight. Didn't get it that time. Let's try it again. There. Now, normally when that comes out, fluid may come out. So you might want to have a few paper towels kicking around. All right, so that popped out. Unscrew that. Okay, and you can see in the end it's just a C-clip that retains it. Now we're going to do that to the other side, and then we're going to unbolt the transfer case. Now, transfer case, with it in the car, these are the bolts that are difficult to get to. They're across the top. 1, 2, 3. I usually just use a ratchet with a really long extension. You can get to them. And then the ones across the bottom are fairly easy to access in the car. Then you can put a pry bar between here, just lightly pry it, and you give it a wiggle and it'll pop right off. So that's how that comes off. All right, so I'll work on that, and then I'll show you guys the how you would pick out a LSD Tcase over a Tcase that has an open diff inside. Okay, so I got the transfer case off. So if we take a look here at the trans, so 3 across the top, 3 across the bottom. This one at the very front is the longest one. These fasteners, all the same size. This is a vent from the transfer case to the transmission. If you lose the O-ring that goes on here, you're gonna have a leak between the cases, so be cautious about that. So that O-ring sits right over here at the top of the case in this relief here. Okay, now as far as knowing if your case is an LSD core case or if it happens to be open diff, the open diffs have a bar across the hole that runs through the middle of them. So if we take a look at this Tcase right here, you take a look in the hole that runs through the center, you can see that there's no bar. The bar would be running across that hole. So I can say with certainty that this Tcase is the LSD case. So in my experience, having worked on these cars for lots of years and having owned more than 20 of them, especially the 456 cars, seems that most Evo 4 cars have open transfer case, so non-LSD. Although that was an option, you could get them. It was mostly on the RS cars where they had the LSD Tcase. 5s, it seems to be about 50-50. Again, it was an option through Mitsubishi, but about half of them have LSD, half of them are non-LSD. The 6s and these 6.5s are mostly LSD. You would, especially with the 6.5s, because they changed the transfer case and put in a core that subsisted through 7, 8, and 9. You just don't see them non-LSD. However, I'm sure they exist, but it would have been very difficult to option them that way. But yeah, so 6s mostly LSD. So that's transfer case. So we're getting to the point where we have to start cleaning because I don't want to get junk into some sensitive areas, especially of the transmission. So I'm gonna have to wrap that up as I clean. Probably what I'll do is I'll pull off the timing side to expose the timing belt, and then we'll start cleaning everything. Alright guys, thanks for checking out the video today. So we're way into disassembling the engine. Like I said earlier, not pulling the head, not dealing with the head gasket. That engine's sealed up great. I don't want to disturb that. So this is the first episode of the engine minor restoration. I'm going to continue next episode with that, going through the timing set, cleaning the engine up, resealing the valve cover, things like that. So please check me out on @WrenchRampage on Instagram. Thanks for checking out the video today, and we'll see you guys soon.